Let's do a sick little experiment. No, just watch the pattern. A narcissist walks into a room like a scanner. They don't look for the strongest. They don't even look for the prettiest. They look for the one who explains themselves. Kind people love to clarify. I didn't mean it like that. I'm not trying to start drama. I'm sure you're good deep down. That sentence right there, it's a buffet. Because the narcissist doesn't need to prove you're wrong. They just need you to doubt you're allowed to be right. So they use props, a fake sad story, a misunderstanding, a compliment with a blade inside. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. And you start negotiating reality like it's a business deal. Now, before we go further, remember the video I dropped yesterday? The one about people who vanish, then return changed? It's in the description and in the first pinned comment. Watch it after this, because it teaches you the doorway they use. In this video, you'll understand why narcissists target kind people, how they sniff out empathy, and how they turn your morals into a leash. You will watch to the last second. Do not click off. If you can't handle it right now, save this video. Come back when you're ready. Because the final seconds are necessary. Don't tell yourself, I'm just being nice. Nice isn't the target. Predictable is. They listen for, it's fine, I get it. I don't want to hurt anyone. Each one is a green light. So listen, this isn't comfort content. Stay with me and you'll recognize the pattern in real time before it closes. If your stomach tightens, good. That's your instincts waking up. Now keep listening. Don't flinch. Stay right here. Okay. As always, close your eyes and focus with me. First, the soft test. It never starts with cruelty. That would scare you away. It starts with something that looks harmless. A tiny disrespect wrapped in a joke. Relax, I'm kidding. And you, because you're kind, smile back, even when it stings. Watch what happens next. They repeat it. Same joke, same edge, same little shove. And you do the kind person thing. You explain. I didn't mean it like that. It's fine. I just don't like that kind of humor. And they don't hear the words. They hear the shape of your boundaries. They're not made of steel. They're made of apology. Real example, simple. You're in a group chat. They take a cheap shot at you. Everyone goes quiet. You try to save the mood, so you laugh it off. Maybe you even add a self-joke like, yeah, fair. And right there, you just taught them something. You taught them the room will stay with them as long as you stay nice. So next time, the test grows. They ignore your message for 12 hours, then reply with one word, K. Not because they're busy, because they want to see if you'll chase. And you, because you're decent, think maybe they're stressed. So you send the second text, then the third. Then you start typing that sentence I can't stand. Did I do something wrong? Sorry, did you feel it? That little tilt in power? That's the first hook. They create a tiny gap, and you fill it with effort. And once they confirm you'll fill gaps, they start making gaps on purpose. They'll forget something important to you, then act confused when you're hurt. They'll compliment you in public, then correct you in private. They'll say, "I love how kind you are," and then punish you for it 5 minutes later. And the dangerous part? You'll still try to be fair. You'll still try to be mature. You'll still try to see both sides. But they don't want fairness. They want a person who won't leave when the rules change. So here's what you do right now. Stay here. Because the next step isn't louder, it's quieter. And if you miss it, you won't notice you've been trained until you're already explaining your pain like it's a crime. Second, the mirror trap. This is where kind people lose weeks, months, sometimes years, because it doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like a conversation. A conversation where you keep waking up exhausted. A narcissist watches what you value, your patience, your empathy, your need to be fair, and they reflect it back at you like a polished window. In the beginning, they sound familiar. They say the same words you would say. I hate drama. I just want peace. I'm big on honesty. And you think, finally, someone who gets it. Then the window turns into a maze. Because once you trust the reflection, they start swapping meanings. Honesty becomes permission to insult you. Boundaries become a weapon to punish you. Peace becomes silence, your silence. And when you react like a normal human, when your voice rises a little, when you ask a hard question, they freeze their face and go very calm. They act like you are the unstable one. Real example. You say, "You hurt me when you disappeared and came back like nothing happened." And they reply, sweet, soft, almost bored. "Wow, you're really keeping score." Or, "I can't deal with accusations." Notice the trick? They don't answer the behavior, they judge the tone. They make the discussion about your delivery, not their damage. So you adjust. You edit yourself. You rehearse sentences in your head like you're in court. No. Like you're begging for permission to have feelings. You add smiley faces. You soften words. You say maybe when you mean yes. You say it's fine when it's not. And the more carefully you speak, the more they test what else you'll rewrite. This is why they love kind people. Kind people have an internal judge. They don't need to control you from the outside. They just need to make your conscience argue with you. And once that argument starts, it doesn't stop at the relationship. It follows you into sleep. It follows you into work. It follows you into the mirror. And the scariest part, you'll still try to understand them. You'll still search for the good reason, because that's what kindness does. But to them, your understanding isn't love, it's access. Third, the charity tax. This one is disgusting because it uses your best trait as a payment system. A narcissist doesn't just take your time, they take your meaning. They figure out what you stand for: loyalty, patience, compassion, and they invoice you for it. Real example, they mess up. They forget something important. They flirt too close. They lie a little, just a small lie. And instead of fixing it like an adult, they bring out a story. A sad childhood, a rough ex, anxiety, stress, pressure. You don't understand what I've been through. And because you're kind, your heart starts doing math. You start thinking, maybe they're hurting. Maybe they need support. So you pay. You pay with forgiveness. You pay with silence. You pay with another chance. That's the tax. Every time they harm you, you're expected to donate more empathy. And if you don't, now you're cold. Now you're selfish. Now you lack compassion. It's blackmail with virtue. Another example, daily life. You ask for something normal, consistency. They act offended that you even asked. Wow, I thought you were different. Different means easier. Then they punish you with withdrawal. Not yelling, not insults, just absence. Late replies, short replies, no affection. And you feel guilty for wanting basic respect. So you start earning it. You become extra sweet, extra patient, extra careful with your words, like you're walking on glass. You edit yourself in real time because you're afraid that one wrong tone will ruin everything. That fear isn't love, it's conditioning. They also borrow your kindness to decorate themselves. They'll say, I'm trying. They'll show tiny efforts like trophies, and you clap because you want progress. But watch the trick. They give 5% improvement, so you accept 95% harm. It's not healing, it's a discount scam. And here's the part people miss. Your kindness makes you believable. So when they flip the story, everyone trusts you to be fair. You'll say, they're not all bad. You'll protect their image while your own stress gets heavier. You become the witness that defends the criminal. Then one day, you notice something small. You're tired before the conversation even starts. You feel your chest tighten when their name appears. You rehearse what to say. You rehearse what not to say. That's the charity tax working. Your nervous system is paying interest. And the funniest part? They'll still call you too much for finally asking to be treated like a human. Fourth, the moving target. This is where kind people get trapped for years because the rules keep changing, but the guilt stays the same. At first, the standard is simple. Be honest. So you're honest. Then the standard shifts. Be gentle. So you soften your words. Then it shifts again. Be loyal. So you tolerate more than you should. And by the time you notice the pattern, you're already performing a full-time job called don't upset them. Real example, watch how clean this is. You ask them why they disappeared. They smile like you just committed a crime. Why are you controlling? Yesterday it was, I love how much you care. Today it's, you're too much. Same behavior from you, new label from them. That's the moving target. Another example, they hurt you, you speak up. They don't address the hurt, they criticize your delivery. You could have said it nicer. So next time, you say it nicer. Then it's, you're always bringing problems. So you bring fewer problems. Then it's, you're distant. So you get closer again. Do you see it? Whatever position you take becomes the next accusation. Because the goal isn't improvement, the goal is keeping you adjustable. If you're always almost right, you'll keep trying. If you're always almost enough, you'll keep investing. And kind people, they love finishing what they started. They hate leaving things unresolved. That trait is a lever. So you begin to chase closure like it's oxygen. You write long messages. You explain your intentions. You offer solutions. You even apologize for your tone while your heart is shaking. Meanwhile, they sit back and watch you work. Then comes the twist. They become the judge of your sincerity. If you cry, you're manipulative. If you stay calm, you don't care. If you get angry, you're crazy. There's no winning because the target is designed to move. And when you finally stop playing, they'll do something subtle. Not rage, not begging. They'll act confused, as if they can't remember the rules they invented. That confusion is strategic. It makes you doubt your memory. It makes you recheck your words. It makes you ask yourself the question they want. Am I being unfair? Here's the real sign you're inside the moving target. You start measuring your worth by their mood. Good day, you're relieved. Bad day, you're guilty. And your body learns the schedule before your mind admits it. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right and it still turns into your fault, that's not bad luck. That's a system. And systems don't break with one argument. They break with one moment of clarity you can't unsee. Fifth, the private courtroom. This is the phase where they stop arguing facts and start arguing your character. You bring up something concrete, a message, a promise, a moment. They don't deny it at first. They reframe it. You're always assuming the worst. You're making me feel attacked. Notice what just happened? The topic was what they did, and suddenly the trial is about what you are. Real example. You say, "You disappeared for 2 days." They tilt the conversation into a courtroom. Your tone is disrespectful. Who talks like that to someone they love? Now you're defending tone, not truth. And because you're kind, you try to be fair, too fair. You start editing your sentence while the wound is still open. They do it in private for a reason. No audience, no accountability, no witnesses. Just you and a moving judge. Here's the trick. They introduce invisible rules. Rules you can't prove, but you can feel. If you loved me, you wouldn't question me. If you trusted me, you'd drop it. If you were mature, you'd get over it. And each one sounds like wisdom until you realize it's a gag, because it makes obedience look like love. It makes silence look like peace. And it makes your pain look like drama. Then they add exhibits, not evidence, mood. They sigh. They go quiet. They stare past you. They let the silence accuse you. Your nervous system hates silence, so you rush to fix it. You explain more. You soften more. You apologize more. And once you apologize, they stamp the file. See? You admit you're wrong. Even if you only apologized for being human. Even if you only apologized for raising your voice after hours of being dismissed. Sometimes they'll do the sweetest, ugliest thing. They confess a tiny flaw to hide a massive one. Okay, maybe I'm not perfect. And you, because you're kind, feel relief. You think, finally, accountability. But it's bait. A small confession earns them a big pardon. Then comes the verdict that keeps you stuck. You're overreacting. Not, I disagree. Not, I see it differently. A diagnosis, a label, a way to erase your perception without touching the facts. And here's the weird, dark detail. You start collecting proof like you're building a case. Screenshots, dates, memories, exact words. Because your reality keeps getting cross-examined. You start acting like a lawyer in a relationship. And the scariest part? You can win the argument and still lose yourself. Because the private courtroom isn't about truth. It's about making you hesitate before you speak. Forever. Sixth, the empathy hostage. This is where they stop debating facts and start controlling your nervous system. They learn what kind people fear the most. It's not pain, it's being seen as cruel. So they build a trap around that word. Cruel, cold, heartless. They don't even have to say it out loud sometimes. Just a look, a sigh, a quiet, wow, okay. Real example. You finally bring up something serious, something you kept swallowing for weeks. You say, when you did that, it hurt. They blink, slow, like you just offended them by having a spine. And then it comes, I can't believe you'd think that of me. Not, I'm sorry. Not, let's fix it. Just moral pressure. Now your kindness panics. You start adding cushions to your truth. No, I'm not saying you're bad, I just, And suddenly the conversation isn't about what they did. It's about proving you're not mean. That's the hostage moment. Your empathy becomes a leash they hold. If you pull away, they tighten it with guilt. If you get closer, they feed. They also weaponize timing. They hurt you, then choose the worst moment to look fragile. Right before an event, right after you had a good day, right when you're busy. So you feel selfish for even wanting to talk, because now you're adding stress. And your kindness, your habit goes, okay, I'll wait. But waiting becomes a lifestyle. Another example, you set a boundary, calm and clear. No more insults, no more disappearing, no more blaming. They don't yell, they go soft, they go wounded. I guess I'm just too broken for you. Do you hear how clean that is? It's not accountability, it's a pity grenade. And you, the kind person, rush to put out the fire. You start comforting the person who lit the match. You start saying, no, you're not broken. I just want us to be better. Congratulations. Now your boundary is gone and you're babysitting their feelings. They keep a scoreboard in their head. How quickly you forgive, how long you endure, how many times you come back after disrespect. And every time you return, you teach them your limit is negotiable. That's not love, that's training. Here's the part that feels unreal when it happens. They'll do something hurtful, then accuse you of being hurtful for reacting. They'll say, "You always make me the villain." And because you hate conflict, you start editing your emotions. You tone down your face. You tone down your voice. You swallow your anger mid-sentence. You start performing okay while your body is screaming danger. Then comes the punishment style that breaks kind people the fastest. They make you earn normal. Normal replies, normal affection, normal respect. Like your basic needs are a privilege. They become warm when you comply, cold when you resist. Warm, cold, warm, cold. Your brain starts chasing the warm like a reward, and you call it trying. You'll even start celebrating crumbs. Aw, they apologized. But the apology is always weird. Half apology, half accusation. "I'm sorry you feel that way." Or my favorite poison, "I'm sorry, okay? Can we stop talking about it?" That's not repair. That's a reset button so they can repeat it clean. And if you ever notice you're afraid to speak, not because you'll be wrong, but because you'll be punished emotionally for having a need, that's the empathy hostage. You don't leave because you're weak. You hesitate because you're decent. And they target decent people because decency comes with a conscience they can pull like a string. Seventh, the identity swap. This is where they stop trying to win the relationship and start trying to wear your face. A narcissist doesn't just want access to your time. They want your role, the good one, the reasonable one, the calm one. Because if they can steal that title, you're finished socially before you even speak. Real example. You finally draw a clean boundary. You don't insult, you don't yell, you just say no. And suddenly they become polite. They become mature. They speak slowly, softly, like a therapist. They say things like, "I hear you." And you think for a second, "Oh, maybe this is change." No, that's them switching costumes. They borrow your tone to disarm witnesses. Then they push you quietly. They bring up old mistakes. They twist details. They question your memory. They interrupt, but with a smile. They act calm while they poke every nerve you have. And when you finally react, one sharp sentence, one sigh, one eye roll, they freeze and look at you like you just turned into a monster. Now watch the swap happen. They become the victim. You become the aggressor. They say, "Why are you yelling?" Even if you're not yelling. They say, "You're scaring me," even if you're just firm. And because you're kind, you panic. You start monitoring yourself, your volume, your words, your face. You start proving you're safe. You start performing innocence. That performance is the trap. Because the more you try to look good, the more they can frame you as guilty. It's psychological judo. They use your morality as momentum. Another real example. You confront them about something obvious, lying. They don't defend the lie. They attack your right to question them. "Why are you interrogating me?" Now you're not talking about the lie. You're defending your right to ask a question. And they love that detour, because detours exhaust kind people. Then comes character assassination, but cute. They'll describe you with one poisoned compliment. You're such a good person. You just get emotional sometimes. Or, they mean well. They're just unstable under stress. So even when you tell the truth, it lands inside a cage they built around your name. And the identity swap goes deeper. They start copying your language, your boundaries, your phrases, so they can use them against you. You say, I need respect. Later they say, I need respect from you. You say, stop gaslighting. Later they say, you're gaslighting me. It's not confusion, it's theft. Because once both of you use the same words, outsiders can't tell who's honest. It becomes two sides. It becomes both are toxic. And the narcissist wins by fog. Fog is their home. Then, privately, they reward the swap. They'll calm down the moment you apologize. Not because they're healed, because the identity swap is complete. You are the one fixing. They are the one receiving. You are the one explaining. They are the one judging. And you'll notice something frightening. You start feeling shame for normal reactions. You feel guilty for anger, guilty for sadness, guilty for saying, that's not okay. So you push emotions down. You become smaller, quiet, careful, nice. That's when they call you peaceful. What they mean is manageable. And if you ever wondered how someone can hurt you and still walk away looking like the victim, it's because they didn't just argue with you. They rewrote who you are in the story. The identity swap isn't about love, it's about ownership. And kind people are targeted here because they would rather doubt themselves than accuse someone else. 8th, the intermittent paradise. This is the part that makes smart, kind people sound insane when they try to explain why they stayed. Because what you lived through wasn't constant abuse. It was weather. Sun, storm, sun, storm. And your nervous system started worshiping the sun. A narcissist studies what makes you melt. Words of affirmation, gifts, attention, protection, that special feeling. They'll memorize it like a recipe. Then they'll serve it only when they need to reset you. Real example, they disappear. Cold, distant, late replies, one-word answers, little jabs. You feel yourself shrinking, trying not to trigger anything. Then, randomly, on a day you're about to detach, they show up warm. They call you. They compliment you. They laugh with you like nothing happened. And you breathe again. You think, there, that's the real them. No, that's the dose. Intermittent reinforcement. Same mechanism casinos use, same mechanism people get addicted to. You don't chase what's guaranteed, you chase what's unpredictable. And kindness? Kindness hopes. Kindness believes the good moment is proof. So you treat the sun like evidence, and you treat the storms like exceptions. But the storms are the system. The sun is the hook. Here's how it escalates in real life. You confront them about disrespect. They punish you with coldness. Then they return with a beautiful moment, a date, a late night talk, a gift, I've never felt this with anyone. And you feel stupid for doubting. You feel guilty for wanting to leave, because now it looks like progress. But it isn't progress, it's anesthesia. They also time paradise right before consequences, right after you catch them lying, right after you set a boundary, right after you get serious. Suddenly they're loving, suddenly they're attentive, suddenly they're reflecting. And your kindness goes, okay, maybe they're trying. So you lower the consequences. You delay the hard decision. You forgive with no repair. And the pattern gets rewarded because they learn warmth cancels accountability. Warmth deletes memory. Warmth erases receipts. Another real example. They insult you subtly. You go quiet. Then they become sweet and ask, "What's wrong?" Not because they don't know, because they want you to confess your hurt gently so they can frame it as a mood. So they can say, "You're overthinking." And if you don't confess, they punish you for being distant. So you confess, and they learn your pain comes with a warning label they can ignore. Now, the most dangerous part of intermittent paradise is what it does to your self-respect. You start measuring love by intensity, not consistency. You start thinking, when it's good, it's amazing. That sentence is a cage, because it implies you must pay for the amazing with suffering. And they'll help you romanticize it. They'll say, we're passionate, we're different. People don't understand what we have. Translation, don't compare me to healthy. Don't let your standards see daylight. They also attach paradise to obedience. You behave how they like, sun. You challenge them, storm. So your brain starts obeying before you even choose. You stop bringing up issues. You stop asking for clarity. You start swallowing truths to keep the weather calm. That's not peace. That's captivity with music. And if you ever noticed you felt relief when they were nice, not joy, relief, that's your body telling you something. Relief means you were under threat. Relief means the baseline was fear. Intermittent paradise makes you addicted to the version of them that appears only when you're about to wake up. And the cruelest part, they'll blame you for craving it. They'll say, you're needy, after conditioning you to beg for sunlight. That's why kind people get targeted here, because hope is loyal. And hope, when exploited, turns into a chain that feels like love. Ninth, the memory fog. This is where it stops feeling like arguments and starts feeling like you're losing your grip on reality, quietly, politely. They don't erase your memory with force. They erode it with revisions. Real example. You remember a sentence exactly. You can still hear the tone. You can still feel what it did to your chest. So you bring it up, careful, calm. And they respond with the cleanest poison. That's not what I said. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I didn't mean it. Just denial. And because you're kind, you hesitate. You don't want to accuse. You don't want to be dramatic. So you start searching your own mind for proof. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it came out wrong. Maybe I'm sensitive. That self-doubt, that's the first layer of fog. Then they add soft facts. Little details that sound reasonable, but change the story. You were stressed that day. You were tired. You were already upset. Notice how those lines don't deny the event. they deny your authority over it. So your emotions become evidence against you. If you're calm, you don't care. If you're upset, you can't be trusted. Either way, your reaction becomes the trial, not what they did. Another real example. You catch them in contradiction. Two different stories, same topic. You point it out, gently, and they smile like you're a child pointing at clouds. Why are you keeping score? Now you're not addressing inconsistency. You're defending your right to notice. And because you're kind, you'll try to explain the reason you noticed. You'll say, I just want clarity. You'll say, I don't want confusion. But clarity is exactly what they can't allow, because clarity creates consequences. So they keep the air blurry. They answer questions with questions. They shift topics. They bring up your tone. They bring up your past. They bring up something unrelated you did months ago. Fog, fog, fog. And you walk through it trying to find the door. Then comes the most humiliating part. You start documenting your own life to feel sane. Screenshots, notes, dates, little reminders. Not to win, but to remember. That's when you know the fog has touched your identity. Here's a small, realistic scenario. They promise to show up. They don't. Later, they act like it never happened. You say, you said you'd be here. They say, I said I'd try. Do you see the edit? Promise becomes attempt. Commitment becomes vibe. And kindness makes you accept the edit because you don't want to be harsh. They also weaponize humor to deepen the fog. They'll mock your memory. They'll mimic your voice. They'll laugh when you're serious. Aw, look at you, detective. And suddenly you're embarrassed for remembering, for caring, for wanting truth. So you stop bringing things up. You stop insisting. You stop naming the pattern. You start choosing peace over clarity. But it's not peace. It's avoidance taught by punishment. And the fog has a second purpose. It isolates you. Because if your memory feels unstable, you stop asking people for perspective. You stop saying, am I crazy? You keep it inside. And inside is where they want you. Alone with doubt. Alone with guilt. Alone with their version of events. They'll also use partial confession as fog. They admit something small, so they can deny the big thing. Fine, I was a little rude. Now if you mention cruelty, they say, I already admitted I was rude. What more do you want? So your pain gets reduced to a word that can be managed. Memory fog doesn't make you stupid. It makes you careful. It makes you tiptoe. It makes you second guess the one person you should trust first, yourself. And once you doubt your own perception, they don't need to control you loudly. They just need to keep you unsure. And when you finally look back, the scariest realization hits. You weren't confused because it was complicated. You were confused because confusion was the design. 10th, the exit penalty. This is where kindness becomes a cage with a lock called guilt, and the key is always, almost in your hand. A narcissist doesn't fear your anger as much as they fear your departure. Because if you leave clean, they lose the audience, the supply, the story. So they build a penalty for leaving, not one big threat, 1,000 small consequences. Real example, you start pulling back quietly, less texting, less explaining, less chasing, and suddenly they become interested again. Not loving, interested. They ask questions like a detective. Where are you? Who are you with? What's wrong with you lately? Notice, not how can I fix what I did? It's surveillance dressed as concern. Then they flip to nostalgia bait. They bring up the early days, the first jokes, the first compliments, the first, "You're different." They try to awaken the version of you that tolerated everything because you believed in the dream. And if nostalgia doesn't work, they activate the exit penalty. They become the victim publicly. They become confused. They become hurt. They'll tell a selective story where they loved you and you suddenly changed. They'll say things like, "I don't know what happened. I tried so hard." Now, you're not leaving a toxic person. You're abandoning a wounded one. And kindness hates abandonment. Here's a realistic scenario. You say, "I need space." They reply, calm, almost sweet, "Sure, I respect that." Then 2 hours later, "I guess you don't love me." Then, "Wow, okay, so I meant nothing." Then, "I'm shaking right now." It's not conversation, it's emotional billing. Each message is an invoice for your attention, and the kind person pays. Even if it's just one sentence, "Please, I'm not trying to hurt you." That sentence is a receipt. It proves you're still reachable through guilt. They also use reputation hostage here. If you're the kind one, you care about being fair. So they hint, subtly, that leaving makes you the villain. "You'll really do this after everything I did for you?" People will see who you really are. They don't have to say, "I'll ruin you." They just have to suggest you'll be misunderstood. And kind people fear misunderstanding like fire. Then comes the self-harm implication trap. Careful, not explicit, just enough. They'll say vague, heavy lines. "I can't handle this. I don't know what I'll do. I'm not okay." They want your conscience to grab you by the throat. Because decency doesn't want blood on its hands, even metaphorically. So you stay. Not because you love them, but because you don't want to feel responsible. That's the exit penalty. They make leaving feel like cruelty. Another move, they offer closure as bait. They say, "Let's just talk one last time." One last time is their favorite lie. Because the last talk becomes 5 talks, then 10, then a late night call, then a meetup for clarity. And every time you re-enter, the wound reopens. You lose progress, they gain access. They also punish you with sudden improvement. The moment you commit to leaving, they become perfect for 3 days. Attentive, apologetic, romantic. That's not change. That's a counteroffer. A desperate bid to keep the door unlocked. And you'll think, what if I'm giving up too soon? That thought is the cage closing. because now you're arguing with yourself instead of walking away. The exit penalty works best on kind people because kind people don't just leave. They try to leave gently. They try to explain. They try to spare feelings. They try to be mature. And every gentle step becomes a handle the narcissist can grab. If leaving requires you to accept being misunderstood, a narcissist will bet that you won't. Because you've spent your whole life proving you're good. And they know exactly how to use that goodness against you. 11th, the moral hijack. This is where they stop trying to defeat your logic and start driving your values like a stolen car. Kind people live by principles, respect, fairness, communication, patience. And a narcissist doesn't see principles as character. They see them as buttons. Real example. You ask for basic honesty. They respond with a lecture about trust. How can you love me if you don't trust me? Notice the trick? You asked for honesty. They flipped it into a test of your loyalty. Now your standards are framed as betrayal. So your kindness tries to correct it. You start saying, no, I do trust you. I just want clarity. And while you're proving devotion, the original issue dies quietly. That's the hijack. They also weaponize forgiveness. They know you admire growth. You like redemption. So they turn every boundary into a lack of grace. You're holding my past against me. You don't believe people can change. And now, if you keep your boundary, you feel like a hypocrite to your own beliefs. Another example. You say, don't speak to me like that. They say, wow, you're policing my feelings. As if your boundary is censorship, as if respect is oppression. So you start negotiating the right to be treated well. Then they hijack empathy itself. They claim your boundary hurts them. They make your no sound like cruelty. You know what I've been through, and you're doing this to me? And kindness, being kindness, freezes. Because kindness doesn't want to add pain to pain. So you compromise, you soften. You give space to the person who invaded yours. They'll even hijack self-improvement language. If you've ever talked about healing, therapy, communication, they'll steal those words and use them like weapons. You're projecting, you're triggered, you're dysregulated. Not to help you, to label you. Because labels end conversations. Labels make you the problem. And the scary part? They can sound so reasonable while they do it. Calm voice, measured tone, little sighs. It makes you feel childish for having feelings. So you start apologizing for your humanity. Here's a realistic scenario. You say, I need consistency. They reply, life isn't perfect. True statement, used as a shield. Because now your request is framed as unrealistic, and kindness hates being unreasonable. So you lower the request until it becomes nothing. Then they hijack your reputation as the good one. They say, you're better than this, meaning, go back to being easy. They say, you're not like those people, meaning, don't hold me accountable. They say, be the bigger person, meaning, accept the smaller life. And if you resist, they accuse you of changing, of becoming cold. But what they fear isn't coldness, it's clarity. Moral hijack is when your conscience starts working against you. You feel guilt for setting boundaries. You feel shame for needing respect. You feel anxiety for telling the truth. You start treating self-protection like a sin. Do you know why this works so well on kind people? Because kind people don't want to win. They want to be fair. They want mutual understanding. They want harmony. A narcissist uses that desire like a steering wheel. So you keep asking, how do we fix this? While they keep asking, how do I keep control? Two different games, same board. And the moral hijack is how they make you play theirs, while believing you're staying true to yours. 12th, the self-erasure. This is the quiet ending nobody announces, because it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It looks like you maturing. It looks like you being patient. But inside, you're shrinking. They don't have to destroy your life. They just have to make you edit yourself every day. Your tone, your jokes, your needs, your boundaries, until the only version of you that feels safe is the version that asks for nothing. Real example. You stop bringing up what hurts, not because it stopped hurting, but because you already know the script. They'll deny it, twist it, blame your delivery, punish your mood. So you swallow it early, before it becomes a fight. That swallowing becomes a habit, then a personality. You start saying, it's fine, automatically. You start laughing at things that aren't funny. You even hear your own laugh and think, why did I do that? Because you're managing the atmosphere like a hostage negotiator. And the narcissist loves this phase, because now they don't need tricks. They have training. They have your fear of being too much. They have your guilt for needing basic respect. They have you blaming you. Self-erasure is when you feel relief, not because things are good, but because nothing is exploding. That's not peace, that's survival. Then one day you notice the scariest detail. You don't miss them when they're gone. You miss the version of yourself you used to be before you started disappearing to keep them comfortable. And that's when kindness finally understands the truth. Being good is not the same as being safe. So, if you're still here, that means you didn't run from the pattern. You looked at it. Most people don't do that. Most people hear the first uncomfortable truth and close the door. Not you. You stayed long enough to see the machinery, the tests, the fog, the guilt traps, the way kindness gets harvested like a resource. And that matters, because understanding this pattern changes something subtle inside you. Not your kindness, your precision. You start noticing the early signals, the tiny disrespect wrapped in humor, the sudden confusion around obvious facts, the strange way your empathy keeps being used as currency. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Which means the next time someone tries the same tricks, the same fog, the same moral hijack, they won't be dealing with the same version of you. Now listen carefully. In a few hours, exactly 4 hours from now, I'm releasing something that changes the game completely. Not another explanation, a strategy. The next video is called How to Outsmart a Narcissist Calmly. No yelling, no revenge, no drama, just quiet control. The kind of control narcissists hate the most. If you thought today's video exposed the pattern, wait until you see what happens when the pattern stops working. But before that, I want to thank you, really. Because finishing a video like this isn't casual entertainment. It means you're willing to look at uncomfortable truths about human behavior, about manipulation, about the darker parts of relationships. That takes awareness, and awareness is rare. So if this video gave you even one moment of clarity, do two small things. First, leave a like. Not for the algorithm, but because it tells this channel you want more psychological breakdowns like this. Second, subscribe, because the next videos go deeper, much deeper. And third, this one is important. Write the title of the next topic you want me to analyze in the comments. A sentence, a behavior, a pattern you've noticed in people. The most interesting ones might become the next videos on this channel. And when you see your idea appear as a video title one day, you'll know exactly where it came from. So write it. One title, one psychological pattern, one question about human behavior. Because the next breakdown might start with your comment. And remember, in 4 hours, the next chapter arrives. How to outsmart a narcissist calmly. You'll want to see that one from the first second. Now you know.